The Iranian TV is playing Tucker's podcast in Iran. The Ayatollah and the mullahs have said, ooh, you need to listen to this guy. The Muslim Brotherhood is pushing Tucker's broadcasts out on social media. The Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. To be clear, Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. They've looked at what Tucker said and said, this is exactly what we believe.
You've been very outspoken, obviously, about Tucker Carlson. He's been outspoken about you, for sure. Look, you say you're going to take him on directly. I want to know what that looks like specifically. But more than that, you're calling out Republicans overall to say, hey, it's time. Say his name. Let me ask you a bit of an uncomfortable question. J.D. Vance is good friends with Tucker Carlson. I get the friendship part of it, but he has not talked about this. Do you think he should?
Look, everyone's going to have to decide where they stand. I believe Ronald Reagan, 1964, gave a very famous speech, A Time for Choosing. And I think this is a time for choosing. And
is silence complicity?
I will say a decade ago, when anti-Semitism began rising in the left, the Democrat leadership did nothing. They looked the other way. And it's consumed their party. I mean, there is a very real pro-Hamas contingent in the Democrat Party. In the last year and a half, I have seen more anti-Semitism on the right than at any point in my life. And it is dangerous, and it risks consuming our party. I don't want us to make the same mistake Democrat leaders made a decade ago, of just to look the other way and to be silent. Tucker Carlson has said there is nobody he hates more on planet Earth than Christian Zionists. And he named specifically me and Mike Huckabee. I think it's unfortunate that I am the person he says he hates most on earth. Now, why does he hate me? He hates me, number one, because I'm a Christian, and that is my faith, and I'm not going to run away from it or apologize for it. But he hates me, number two, because I'm a Zionist. Now, what does it mean to be a Zionist? Does it mean that America must obey the orders of the Prime Minister of Israel? No, and that's a stupid straw man that the people online create. To be a Zionist is very simple. It means you believe the nation of Israel should exist. That's your basic question. Should there be a nation of Israel or not? The people who denounce Zionists want to see Israel driven into the sea. There are 50 Muslim nations in the world. There's one Jewish nation. I don't think it's unreasonable for the Jews to have one homeland when there are 50 Muslim nations, and I don't think it's unreasonable for the Muslims to have homelands as well. But the Tuckers of the world argue instead of 50 Muslim nations, there should be 51. And they should remove the Jews from Israel because they have no right to have a nation. I think that is an extreme position, but I will say, look, I am very, very concerned the church is asleep. I promise you, you may think things are great. Talk to the kids in your church. Talk to the teenagers. Talk to the 20-somethings, because the numbers, evangelicals turning on Israel, it is happening, and the pastors, far too many are asleep and unaware of it.
What is your message, if you could look into the camera, if you will, and address the younger generation in the church today, the Gen Zers?
Listen, you're being lied to about Israel. Those who attack Zionism simply says Israel should exist. By the way, the modern state of Israel was created coming out of World War II, coming out of the Holocaust, coming out of 6 million Jews being massacred in concentration camps by the Nazis. And the phrase that came out of that was never again, that Israel would have a homeland, so never again would they face genocide. That, to me, is a very reasonable proposition. Israel was formed, and by the way, Israel is surrounded by nations that hate them and that would drive them in the sea. The only reason Israel continues to exist is because the military is strong enough that its neighbors cannot defeat it. Because over and over again, when Israel was created, immediately the Muslim nations around invaded and attacked. And Israel won war after war after war. That's why Israel continues to exist. We support Israel, the United States does, because it's overwhelmingly in America's interest to support Israel. Why? Because their enemies are our enemies. Because we get enormous military benefits. The Mossad, Israel's intelligence, is unbelievably good. Look, in the middle of this war in Iran right now, we know where all the military leaders are principally because of Israel, because of their intelligence. It's so good. If we tried to recreate the benefits we get from intelligence and military from cooperating with Israel, if we tried to just do it on ourselves, it would cost tens of billions of dollars more, and it wouldn't be nearly as good. And every single Hamas terrorist or Hezbollah terrorist or Iranian terrorist that Israel kills is a national security benefit to America, because those terrorists, yes, they want to murder Israelis, but they want to murder Americans as well. You asked about replacement theology.
Oh, yes, please.
And this is something Tucker and others are pushing. And this is, look, I think this is a heresy. It is a notion that the promises in the Bible that God makes to Israel are no longer valid. The Jews are no longer God's chosen people. And instead, replacement theology argues that the Christian church has replaced Israel and the Jews as God's chosen people, and all of the promises in the Old Testament are now invalid.
So God breaks his promises, apparently.
And that, I think that is absolutely wrong. If God breaks his promises to the people of Israel, that suggests that God could break his promises to Christians as well. And I don't believe God breaks his promises. But I want to speak to pastors and theologians for a minute. Listen, I'm a politician. I'm a lawyer. We need more Christian pastors to engage in this battle, to take on what is wrong biblically with replacement theology. We need more pastors to stand up and preach. What does the Bible say about Israel? I think there are far too many pastors that just assume that the Christian church is fine, we stand with Israel, and they're not addressing it. They're not taking on these arguments. They're not refuting them. And frankly, if we leave it to politicians to do, that's not going to be effective. We need pastors to stand up, to rise up and to lead in a way that can be heard by young people, because they are hearing the other side. They are hearing that Israel is wrong, that they're terrible, that the Jews are wrong. They're hearing this constant poison, and we need Christian leaders to press back and say that's not right.
This last question I had, Tucker and foreign influence, how concerned are you about that, specifically from a financial standpoint?
I'm very concerned about that. Look, if you look at U.S. universities and foreign nations that give money to U.S. universities. I don't think foreign nations should be able to give any money to U.S. universities. I think it is causing a lot of problems in our colleges and universities. The number one foreign funders of U.S. universities is Qatar. Qatar has given $6.6 billion, with a B, to U.S. universities. You look at the anti-Semitic protests and riots you had on college campuses all across the country. I think Qatar was a major force funding that. I'm not the only person who noticed the tents all matched. It was not spontaneous. It was not just organic. It was funded. And I believe it was funded by Qatar, and I think by Iran and China. And you might say, China, why would China be pushing that? Look, it's in China's interest just to divide us, just to push dissension and create chaos. But Qatar in particular is paying money. Look, Qatar hosts the leaders of Hamas. They live like billionaires. They live like kings. And Qatar spends billions pushing anti-Semitism, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, pushing ideologies that rip America apart. And I believe many of these influencers that are online that are saying this, I think it is quite likely they are being paid, and paid millions of dollars. I don't think they're being paid a little bit. I think they're being paid a lot by Qatar. And that is consistent with everything that we're seeing. We know Tucker Carlson bought a home in Qatar. And to be clear, it's not just that every podcast he has, he's attacking Israel, he's attacking Jews. Jews are the source of everything wrong. Every problem we have in America came from the Jews, according to him. It's not just that. Anti-Semitism is a gateway to anti-capitalism and anti-Americanism. And so Tucker is also, he interviewed the president of Iran, and it was a softball interview. He asked him no hard questions. This is the same president of Iran actively trying to murder Donald Trump. Tucker didn't ask him about that. Tucker has praised Nicolas Maduro, the communist dictator of Venezuela, who we just arrested. He's praised Comrade Mondami, the communist and Islamist mayor in New York. Tucker has said he thinks we should apologize to the family of Osama bin Laden. I don't think we should apologize. Osama bin Laden murdered nearly 3,000 Americans on 9/11. I am very glad the military took him out. That's the military's job, to protect our nation. Tucker has said he doesn't know that Hamas is a terrorist organization. He thinks they might just be a political movement. Right now, I'll tell you something amazing, David. The Iranian TV is playing Tucker's podcast in Iran. The Ayatollah and the mullahs have said, ooh, you need to listen to this guy. The Muslim Brotherhood is pushing Tucker's broadcasts out on social media. The Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. To be clear, Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. They've looked at what Tucker said and said, this is exactly what we believe. That is dangerous. Tucker Carlson is waging a war online against President Trump's foreign policy. Now, he's too much of a chicken to call Trump out by name, so instead he attacks me and Mike Huckabee, who are supporting President Trump's foreign policy. But Tucker doesn't have the courage to actually admit that it's Trump he's attacking. I think we need to address the lies and the poison he is spreading, because I think it is an existential threat right now.
Ties potentially be investigated?
Absolutely.
Congressional investigations?
Look, I think anyone who is receiving foreign money and not disclosing it to spread lies, to act as an agent of a foreign government, I think that should be disclosed. I think it is dishonest to receive foreign money and then pretend. By the way, there's another broader problem online, which is there are a lot of foreign actors online who pretend to be Americans. And most social media companies don't disclose the country of origin where the posts are coming from, which is why our enemies spend real money trying to deceive Americans and deceive young people. I think conservatives, I think Christians, I think church leaders need to get much more savvy responding to the lies. And I mentioned a second ago that it's an existential threat. You might say, well, why is that? Because I don't want to wake up in 5 years in a country where both major political parties are unambiguously anti-Israel and unapologetically anti-Semitic. And I think if we don't act now, that could happen. And I'll tell you, as for me and my house, we will stand with Israel. We will stand with America. And I'm going to fight with every ounce of strength I have to prevent this country being lost and this country being poisoned by these untruths.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this: you can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.